Hello, our truth warriors. Today's guest is a shining example of what can be achieved through strong will and sheer determination. He has brought about with his actions a moment that will become part of history as we move forwards towards victory over tyranny. The news had no choice to cover it, and it was heard all around the world, inspiring many now to stand up and play their part in the future of humanity. The time is now, people. And to tell us more about this, it is the co-founder of V4F, which is Veterans for Freedom. And he's the man who is instrumental in this very case, which everyone is talking about. And today we also have some very big news that we're going to break and talk about as well. So without further ado, it's a great welcome to the very man himself, Eddie Cornell. Hello, sir.
Hello, Chris. Thanks for inviting me on.
Oh, it's great. It's great to see you. So we'll start off, talking about what's happened. Now, is there anything that you would change in regards to the approach? In fact, no, I'll tell you what we're going to do. People here may not know about your history. So, please tell us about yourself first and how you actually got involved with this.
Sure. Yeah, I can go back to, I guess, the beginning of when this all started 4 years ago, speaking out, and I knew something wasn't right. Just tried to encourage people to look for themselves, to understand what's going on, that what they're telling us really doesn't add up. And then came the trucker convoy, and that was unbelievable. So I was sitting at home listening to this starting to take place, and I knew I had to get in my car, and off I went to Ottawa. So I, as a veteran, I thought, you know what? I just want people to know that veterans are here and they're going to stand up and help you get the message across. I got spotted in the crowd. They pulled me up on the main stage. I gave a small little speech to everybody. Then they kind of took notice and said, "Hey, you want to work with us?" In the I guess, for lack of a better word, the command center, helping out to do logistics or whatever I needed to do, help out in any way. And I said, "Yeah, great, I'll do it." And a series of events took place. What happened with the events in Ottawa, and the way it ended was terrible. The way that the thugs came out and just beat up people for standing up for their charter rights, and we thought, we can't let it end here. Nice. So we started that suit, which you just spoke of in the intro. And it took a lot of time to get that suit going and get it underway. And there was a lot of hurdles. And the surprising thing about that is that really no one heard of it. It got zero notice. It flew under the radar. And I think, in hindsight, that's probably a really good thing, because if people were pinning hopes on, that we were going to win this case, and then, to find out at some point when the case was closed that we didn't win that decision, it would have been just another series of letdowns, and everybody's, suffering from an enormous amount of, letdowns and disappointments, and, losing jobs. You can go down a huge list. But for most people, this was the first time that they heard about it when the actual decision came out, that we won in court, not the inquiry. That was, really, in my opinion, just a liberal kangaroo court. We'd had hopes that we would get decisions, but you can quickly tell probably halfway through that the fix was in. You could see it. And there was a lot of effort put into the inquiry, but it didn't go our way. And to have this come out of nowhere for everybody, and, wake up and see, on the news, well, not the legacy media, but through, people like yourself and others spreading the news that we'd won our court challenge. It was unbelievable. Yeah. It was incredible.
Absolutely. And anyone that's wondering what we're on about the Measures Act, the Emergency Measures Act that was put in place in Canada, that was recently back in court, and a judge ruled that not only was it not required, they certainly overstepped the mark. It was against the Canadian Charter of Rights and Constitution that was in place. And, you know, this really is a massive thing. And this has also been, you know, reported worldwide because it couldn't be ignored anymore. Now, is there anything that you would change about your approach to handling this case, the way it went? Or is the result good enough to say we've done exactly what we needed to do?
I think it went according exactly to the plan.
Yeah.
You know, we had our reservations, you know, given the way that the courts seem to make decisions in, you know, in this period of the last few years. You know, we didn't try to get our hopes too high, but, you know, looking back, I think our strategy worked, and we had success. And man, I mean, it's so big that, you know, I think this will be a decision that will really carry through for decades to come when our government tries to violate our charter rights again.
Yeah. And the thing is, the government, you know, and this is what amazes me. People think the governments are the ultimate power over people, and it's not the case. You know, people don't realize that the governments are actually employees of the people and should be listening to the people. And I think governments around the world stopped listening to people a long time ago and started listening to the funding of major corporations around the world that serve their best interests at heart, and certainly not the people. And that's unfortunate in the way that it's gone. Now, going back to what happened up in Ottawa, an incredible time. It was even stated by the authorities up there how peaceful it was, and the police even mentioned how peaceful it was and how good everything was. You know, the jokes about the fact that the bouncy castles were there and there was children there, and it was just, from what I've seen and what I've studied and the people I've spoken to over the past few years, you know, this was one of the most amazing events where people came together. Now, there's been from that and continuing from that a constant call for a peaceful resolve in any situations that arise. Now, is there a point where there is no other choice for people, though, than for the people to revolt in the same manner that many have actually done before in history, where tyranny has taken grips and people have just had enough? You know, is it justified at any point? And do we think we would ever see anything like that come about?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question. You know, I think really our best hope is the courts. And, you know, that's where people hope to get justice. And that's the system that we really have to concentrate on. You know, as far as going kinetic, let's hope we never get to that point. You know, let's hope that calm heads and the rule of law will carry it through and do the right thing. And, you know, with this decision last week, it just proves that not all the courts, and especially at the highest, you know, courts, the federal court and possibly the Supreme Court, that, you know, they're going to make decisions based on actual law. And it gives renewed hope to every Canadian. I mean, this has energized people to think, well, you know, maybe we can get justice in the existing legal system. So I'm very hopeful for the future for all of us. And there's a lot to accomplish.
Yeah.
So
as you mentioned before, though, I mean, there was times that you didn't think that anything was going to happen. It was absolute radio silence on anything that was going on, and people, you know, this has been something that's took some time. Is the court process, in your opinion, too much of a long and drawn out process? And, you know, especially when people are suffering that boot of tyrannical governance. We all know what people have gone through over the past few years, and people really have suffered to the point of many people dying, either from what they took, from suicide because of the pressure and the problems that they've had. Is the court process something that needs to be sped up and expedited in the future? Is it possible that that could happen? You know,
I think so.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hopeful that the courts, you know, will expedite things because there's a lot of things that need to be resolved. You know, it is a slow process, you know, judging by the way things have gone up to this point. But, you know, I don't want people to lose hope. And, you know, we've been through a lot and we've got a lot to go through yet. I mean, we won a major battle, but we haven't won the war yet. You know, a tyrannical government like what we've been exposed to for the past couple of years, the world saw what happened here. I mean, that's still the talk of the world, how they froze, mine was frozen, my bank accounts, but froze people's bank accounts and, you know, beat people up and people that were offering no resistance at all. And then, you know, you see mainstream media, legacy media, talking about the convoy and other things, that it was, you know, violent, and there was Nazis, and there was all kind, and it was all fabrication. It's been proven to be fabricated.
Yeah.
So they'll stop at nothing to put a narrative together.
That's
Don't let that distract you. You know, like people, you know, we get pulled in many different directions. You have to keep your eye on what the end goal is, and that's to restore our rights and freedoms the way it's supposed to be, and hold these people accountable for what they've done.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I remember the police chief turning around and saying that there was people ripping masks off the faces of people. I never saw anything like that, never heard anything like that. There was never any video footage or evidence to prove that. And I'll guarantee that the likes of the police chief was just handed a script. Speak from that. These are the points you need to make. And unfortunately, when we've got somebody in charge that's prepared to lie on camera to that extent, that's not a good fit for the job, and certainly not a good, you know, something that's going to move forward for the people. Now, I would like to think that before they went ahead with the Emergency Measures Act, that the government would have sought legal advice. Now, which do you think happened here? Number one, they never sought legal advice at all. Number two, they ignored the legal advice. Or number three, were given bad legal advice. And at this point, you know, why did no judge step in and stop them?
You know, what you just stated, I think it's a combination of all of that. I really do. I really believe that, you know, they had an agenda and they were going to push it through no matter what advice or intelligence that they got. They wanted a result, and that's what they pushed, and that's what they got. Unfortunately for them, it didn't work out so well. They were exposed for the tyrants that they were, and the thuggery that they've perpetrated on people that offered them no harm or resistance. So I'm so proud of everybody that stood up and remained peaceful and showed the world that through peaceful demonstrations, you can achieve a result. We don't need to be violent. That's not the way. That's how we lose. Peaceful resistance shows the world that, you know, stand your ground, you can win. And, you know, you can see the result, what's happening around the world now. The world is standing up to what's been going on. So I think that most governments basically around the world are in panic stations. They don't know what to do. So they're trying to distract us with all kinds of other things, trying to, you know, get us into wars that we should have no business in. There's just, I mean, it's information overload, trying to distract us from getting things put back into the perspective and the governance that we should have. You know, these people believe that there are rulers, not our governors. These people are elected representatives. They're not dictators, but they act like it, and that's got to change.
Yeah, they've become power hungry with what they've got, and of course, you know what we've seen them get away with for years prior. They think they can just continue to get away with things, and I think humanity right now is standing up to the point where they're saying, no, you can't get away with this anymore. We will no longer be under the boot of tyranny. And certainly what we're seeing in Europe, especially Germany and France right now, you know, these guys are not giving up. They're prepared to take it right to the wire. We're seeing the same in Australia as well. And this is fantastic news. This is it's not on the news. Don't get me wrong. You know, you're not going to turn your TV on and see it, but we know it's going on. We're seeing enough of coverage on social media and different platforms that will put it out there. And that's a great thing. Now, talking about the case again, you know, one thing that did happen immediately is Chrystia Freeland, we won't say what she is, we know what she is, but she immediately stood up and said that this was being appealed. Now, why do you think that they are actually trying to appeal it? Is it because they have to appeal it, or is it just to buy them more time?
That's exactly right. They're trying to buy more time. I think it absolutely set them back on their heels when Judge Mosley rendered his decision. If people have taken time to read the decision, it's a very in-depth decision. I've digested as much as I could. I think that the decision that he made, and I have to thank Judge Mosley for using the law and making a decision based on the facts and the law. And, you know, I think he wrote a decision that is so solid. I think it would be very difficult to actually overturn this decision. I think he went to great lengths to make it so that in an appeal, it's really not going to change the decision that he made. And what I really admired is the fact that when he said that had he not looked at the evidence, just as a person, before he'd examined the evidence, he probably would have sided with the government. And I think that was a very honest statement that he made. And then once he saw the evidence and got into the depth of the case, he realized that, this was a complete violation. And they call it ultra vires, which means, you know, they definitely went beyond their authority to do so. And it was illegal.
And it's amazing that, you know, all this evidence is what's brought this together, because it just shows you how much evidence and things have been dismissed or not been allowed to be seen. Not just, you know, it has obviously in this case, but in prior cases, people that have gone to court, and anyone who's been to court prior and lost now, I'd encourage to go back again. Don't give up. Go back and have another go at it, because the game has changed absolutely for everybody out there. Now, is what has happened here going to set precedent again for those future cases? And is there a time constraint in regards to maybe 2 years on this enactment now for people to challenge it? Or is it just an open-ended ability to do it? You know, people now need to challenge it for their own circumstances. Is there a time constraint on this, or should people now really build a good solid case and go after what, you know, really needs to be done to bring justice for them personally?
I really like that question. Yeah, it's true. Like Judge Mosley was supposed to render his decision within 6 months of the actual court challenge, which was, we initiated it and it went to trial on April 3rd of last year. So with you know, you take the timeline to 6 months later, he was beyond that. So he could have kept it for another month, but he released it last week. That gave us 30 days to take legal action. He could have delayed it to the point where we would have no ability to challenge, you know, and actually in the courts go after people. But he didn't do that. He gave although short, he gave a window where people can launch lawsuits for what's happened to them. And I guess that's kind of what's going to bring me to my next point that, if you would like, we can talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
sure. We're in the process of filing a major lawsuit against the government, financial institutions, and all of the police that decided they thought it was a great idea to use thuggery against innocent people.
Good.
And this will apply for the period of time that when the emergency order was, you know, introduced until it was removed. So it's a massive undertaking, and there'll be a lot of people joining myself. Vincent Gerses is the other person, along with Jeremiah Jost. We were the there was 4 people. Christian Nagel was one of them, and Harold Riestow. They were not given standing in our court case, but it was Vincent Gerses and myself that were the last remaining 2 on the federal court case that had standing, which means, you know, we were directly affected. Our bank accounts were frozen. So Jeremiah Jost, who was beaten up by the police, unfortunately wasn't given standing in that last federal decision, but he was beaten up by the police. Vincent Gerses and myself we had our accounts frozen, along with many other people that had their accounts frozen. 280, I believe, is the number, plus all of the other Canadians that suffered under the jackboots. And you've heard those phrases on, different social media of the police. So we've launched a major challenge. We've got the same team of legal representation that got this federal decision. We're going to launch this challenge, and we're suing every one of them. We are not naming names at the moment, but I can tell you it's a long list, and they're going to be held accountable. And we're asking people to join us. What's kind of interesting is that there's a project that was started to support us, and it's called the Accountability Project. And it's a separate entity from us. But what it's done is it's up and running, and they're going to have a website. It's tapcan.org, TAPCAN.org. And this will be an awareness and fundraising entity to support all of us that are taking this challenge further.
Yeah.
And there'll be a lot more information coming out in the coming days. And it's going to bring all of these people under the scrutiny of what they did.
What was that website again? Tapcan.org?
Yes, TAPCAN.org. The flash page is there with the logo, and it has an info@tapcan.org email below. But in the next few days, that site will be up and running, I'm told. And I think as of Monday, they tell me, hopefully there'll be a donate button. And as you can imagine, this will be a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
And, we're hoping Canadians will get behind this challenge, because it affects us all.
Yeah.
And, we can't let them get away with it because we don't have the finances to do it. It's a very expensive venture. So what's great about it is it's not me personally or Vincent Kersey's or Jeremiah Jost having money coming into us. We are not involved with, the Accountability Project at all. It's a separate entity, but they are supporting us and us only for this case. And I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. And obviously the funding that comes in is going to be able to allow a stronger legal challenge. There's going to be more time, more people, and certainly, more lawyers involved in regards to make sure, again, that we have a great success moving forward in holding these people accountable. And again, this is probably, what's happened is just the start of it. This will be the second phase. And what will move forward from that is going to be the fact that everyone out there can then start challenging many others for accountability for what's happened to them. I'm not saying that this should be a way that people go out and get financial compensation for what happened, but certainly forge something that in the future means that no government in the world, certainly in Canada as well, is allowed to do what they did ever again, and put the people back in control of their country and the future, certainly for the children and grandchildren moving forward. And that's really what we want. We want to make it that way. Back to the truckers convoy. Do you think if the truckers went back to Ottawa now, do you think it would have the same impact, or was this just a once in a lifetime event?
I think it was a once in a lifetime event. I think, that set the standard for everything to come after. I think that job was done, and I think it's every Canadian's duty to stand up wherever they are across the country and keep it going as far as speaking out and standing your ground, because we can't go backwards. There's nothing back there for us. We have to move forward and hold each and every person that's perpetrated this and ruined our lives. People have committed suicide. People have been harmed. We can't let this rest the way it is. These people, the media is basically, the mainstream media is basically using scripts that they're handed, and it's not reality. They're not reporting You know how many people from mainstream contacted me after the federal court challenge?
I guarantee it was none.
Zero, not one, not one. That should tell you something. You know, one of the biggest cases in Canadian history. I mean, I was just a guy on the bus. You know, like I'm not trying to take credit for this. The three of us, you know, we're just regular people.
Yeah.
And it was the Canadian people that were the fuel to drive that bus. We all won. This was all of us. We just happened to be the names on the lawsuit and stood up to it. But, you know, it's not about me. It's not about Vincent or Jeremiah. I mean, we just want to be, you know, sort of the lightning rod to keep it going, and want Canadians to join us, because we have to do this.
Absolutely.
And if you're thinking of it strictly for the money, if you think it's all about money, then you're in the wrong perspective.
That's right.
It's bigger than that. It's not. If you're thinking strictly money, you know, that I think that's the total wrong way of thinking. I'm not in it for the money, and I know the other two aren't either. I mean, we're in it to make sure things like this don't happen again, and hold those people to account.
And if people don't stand up now, this is something everyone can get involved with. This is something that everyone can be part of history moving forward. And if people are in it for the money, and they do get money, sadly, you know, the way things will move forward from that is we'll end up on a digital currency. The money that they may have got mightn't be worth anything, and the government will just continue to do what they want to do. What people need to realize is the value of something, is the value in the quality of life, and the value in what they put their stamp on in the lifetime that they're here. And right now is the opportunity for people to do that. And I really do think that people need to stand up and be counted. People may have been silent for so long. Now's not the time. If you've got something to say, if you've got something to bring to the table, even if it's just lobbying yourselves, the local MLAs, to get results within Parliament, to push that message home, and to make sure that they understand that it's the people that are in control of the country, not the government, and the government work for them and should continue to work for them and follow the will of the people. And that's what really is the big win moving forward, because we could change. If people want a better life in Canada, this will bring you a better life. And that is exactly where this needs to go.
You're absolutely right. You know, I guess basically, you know, people out there that are listening, and, you know, Canadians across the country, it's time to get off your couch. You know, you can't sit there and expect everybody else to get it done for you.
Yeah.
Everybody can play a small part. You know, you don't have to go out and wave flags and protest in the streets. Communication, spreading information to other people, do what you can, but to do nothing is losing is certainty by doing nothing.
Yeah.
So do what you can do, but at least do something, because if you don't, we're going to lose everything, and we can't let that happen.
And if people don't do anything now, it's a virtue signal to the governments and to the tyrants that it's okay for them to continue, and people will suffer the consequences of their own silence for doing nothing. This is a time in great history where people really need to step forward, really need to speak their mind. Don't be afraid to talk to your neighbors, even if you know that they disagreed with it. Because what I've seen literally over the past few years is a lot of people waking up, a lot of people that were against it that have eventually come full circle. And they're now turning around and saying, this was wrong. I wish I hadn't have taken that. I wish this hadn't have happened. And I wish I'd have spoke up earlier. Now's the opportunity. That's where I think we need to head.
I think you're absolutely right. And I would look at it this way. If I was a parent, a mother, a father, or a grandparent, and when your children or your grandchildren are old enough to understand, and they ask you, Mom, Dad, Grandma, Grandpa, what did you do when this went on? Are you going to tell them you sat on the couch and didn't do anything? Or are you going to say, you know what? I did my part. I stood up, I spoke out, and I fought for your future.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not just Canada, people in the UK, Europe, Australia, the US. This is a message to everyone out there. They all have to do the same, or we will suffer the consequences. And now
You
is the
can't be
opportunity.
complacent.
No, that's right. Now, as the Honourable Richard Mosley, the judge who ruled on this case, do you think he's now given a signal to other judges to do the right thing? Will they follow this? Or is there too much corruption in the courts still?
Well, that's a very good question. I think he's a very well respected judge within his peer circle. And, remember, he's an appointed liberal judge. So, he made a decision based on law. I would think, just my own opinion, that his decision will have a lot of influence on, the other peers within the legal system to do the right thing.
Yes.
I think, they're probably within their circle. There was probably a level of fear to, not go against what the government, is trying to push as the narrative. But I think now he has definitely opened the door for them to stand up and do what's right. And moving forward, I am so hopeful that that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
And, we're going to peel back that, those layers of tyranny that they imposed on just everyday Canadians.
Yeah.
And the lies that they told. So
yeah, definitely. And there's, I've got a message to the judges out there. What side of history do you want to be on? Because at the end of the day, they can see the way this is going. And as people, take the stand, as people start to win against the very corrupt, tyrannical system, they need to know that their future is in the people's hands. And as the people win in regards to what's going on, they need to stand with the people. They need to prove to the world what justice really is and what they truly do stand for. And I do believe that the judges should no longer be coerced or brought to bring decisions about by corrupt politicians and corrupt corporations and the big players that want results in their own best interests, and start to stand by the very people that pay their wages in the future.
I agree.
Yeah.
When you tell lies, you have to tell more lies to protect your lie. When you tell and speak the truth, you don't have to remember anything.
No.
Because the truth will always come forward. Always.
Yeah, absolutely. In the time that this has gone on, Eddie, have you had any backlash or threats during this time since the case was launched?
No, actually, I think just the opposite. I've had nothing but real positive messages coming my way. I mean, you're always going to get people on, on the other side of an opinion trying to derail what you're doing. Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, that's to be expected. And it just goes with the territory. But I think overall, the outpouring of, congratulations and, hope that's been coming in my direction has been great. I haven't felt threatened at all up to this point.
Yeah, no. Are we to expect any kind of apology or statement from the police, or is it, is just following orders a good enough excuse for them?
Well, yeah, I think in the coming days, you're going to see a lot of things taking place. Following orders is never the right decision. Yeah. So I would say, if you have been one of those people that were there during the emergency order or did something to lock down people's accounts, you might want to think about what is to come, because we are going to hold you accountable. That's what I can say. Yeah. And you're not going to be able to hide. We will find the information and we will do the right thing.
Yeah. Now, Pierre Trudeau, the father of Justin, well, possibly the father of Justin, invoked martial law during his term. Do you think, as a weak little boy like Justin, he was just trying to emulate his father's legacy?
it's possible. I don't know what he thinks. I don't really think that he thinks all that hard. I think, he's pretty much handed a script from Christia Field, and that's just my personal opinion. That
Yeah.
this is what you have to do. The one thing I have seen, I'm old enough to have lived under the original Trudeau's government, and I think this Trudeau has far surpassed his father with just the incompetence and the the backroom deals and the
Scandals.
just the slimy, the scandals. I mean, it makes his father look like a choir boy compared to what this person has done to undermine our country. So, I think, he's probably outdone his father, but not in a good way.
Yeah. Now, one thing comes to mind with obviously the legal proceedings moving forward. Now, has Quebec yet signed the Canadian Constitution? And could this be a problem for people challenging the government in this province and trying to use the supreme law to actually win cases in regards to what's happened?
Well, that's a question, honestly, Chris, that I can't answer because, I'm not a legal scholar and I really can't give legal advice to anybody. If they're uncertain of what to do, I would suggest finding some good representation and see what your options are because, I know that things are going to be time sensitive, so I wouldn't sit on it too long. I would, start looking into it immediately.
Yeah,
and it's going to happen fast.
Yeah, as always said, forewarned is forearmed. People can really need to start preparing now and putting their hat in the ring, so to speak, and making sure that they're in position. Do you think can this ruling in some way assist the position of the Coots 4 who are still held in jail?
I can't understand what's going on with the Coots 4. I just know that something doesn't seem right, and I'm hoping that they're going to get their case looked into, and that they'll be able to get freedom from being sitting in remand for over 700 days. You see murders, rapists, and all kinds of other things get released on bail, and I think it's a real travesty what's happened to those 4 guys. I don't want to say anything that will help, or I should say not help, but help them, the justice end of things, to persecute those guys. And I don't want to undermine their position, but I hope that they get a quick resolve with their case, because this is a disgrace to Canadian justice, in my personal opinion. I feel sorry for those guys and their families, and I'm glad people are speaking out and keeping their case in the news. It's so important. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's a lot of good people in the background there, supporting where they are and continuing to fight on their behalf. And we've spoke to a few of them. We've got friends who are doing this, and it is an admirable cause. And I hope that, again, justice is served in the correct manner in regards to this. What legal ramifications are now possible against those involved in bringing the Emergencies Act into place, as well as those who actually enforced it? Are they in deep trouble now, do you think?
I would say so. Our legal team will be announcing soon all the individuals that and institutions that we will be targeting for this lawsuit. They're going to be exposed. And the good thing, I think what will come is that under these suits, evidence that wasn't able to be introduced or that was redacted in previous challenges will, be uncovered and possibly give evidence to criminality, as well as, other things that we at this point haven't discovered yet. So this could have a very big reach on what, the different institutions from government, police, financial institutions did to Canadians. And I think this will have far-reaching, information that people will be able to use.
Yeah. I mean, can the measures that are put in place for social distancing, masks, coerced or forced vaccination be challenged now? Or do you think this is something that will come later? Because right now we're focusing on what happened during that period within the Emergency Measures Act.
These are all things that have to be looked at. Absolutely. But, you know, it's what's starting to unfold, and I hope it unfolds faster, is the actual criminality based on fabricated evidence that they use to impose all of these mandates and, you know, punished people the way they did with social distancing and employment and so on. I think there's a lot of ramifications with the information that's starting to unfold, and they're going to have a difficult time disproving the truth.
Yeah. And obviously now you're working on a lot bigger case now to deliver the final blow to the authorities in regards to accountability. I think that's going to be something great in itself.
I'm very hopeful of what's to come. You know, our legal team is a fantastic team. They got the job done for that federal challenge. They're also the same legal team that are working with, they're the representation for detective gurus in Ottawa. And if people aren't familiar with that story, you might want to check it out. She's the detective that is, you know, been undermined by her own police force and being, you know, disciplined. So they're representing her. And now the same team will be coming forward on this next challenge, which is holding everyone accountable for what they did during the Emergency Act. So they're spectacular. And I have complete faith in that team.
No, that's great. Now, there's a lot of big players that have been involved with what's gone on over the past few years. But in March 2021, Canada signed 2 grant agreements with the World Health Organization to the amount of $130 million of taxpayer money. The pandemic treaty is due to be signed in May 2024 now. Do we think this can be stopped if there's enough challenge against it?
My opinion, I don't think we're going to be able to stop that. I think that this government will sign it at all costs. But from what I understand, and I'm no legal person, from what I understand, is it's not for them to take sovereignty over all of us. And you could correct me, you know, from what I read. Basically, from the way that I'm told, is it's protecting them from indemnity. You know, it's saying, well, we didn't make that decision, they did, and we did what they recommended. So it's to take, you know, that responsibility legally away from them and passing it to an entity which now becomes a different legal challenge in the international court. So now you're dealing with international laws. So I think they're trying to cloud the, you know, the accountability for making decisions in the future. I think that's what it's all about. But, you know, anyone can correct me on that, but that's what I personally seem to understand about it.
Yeah. I mean, we've got now Justin Trudeau. Obviously, the guy doesn't make decisions. We know that. But I do think that Chrystia Freeland does have a big hand in a lot of things that go on. Now, she is on the board of trustees for the World Economic Forum. She's going to be one of the people, I think, moving forward that will be held accountable. And if she is held accountable, do you think that she would have a future with the World Economic Forum? Or do you think that they would probably want to terminate the position that they have with her?
Well, I think I would probably give an answer that's a non-answer.
Yeah.
I would say, wait for what's to come. I will not name names, but I think things will turn out a little differently than what others might expect. And I mean people that are in place now in governments and police and banking institutions. So I have to be careful with what I say.
No, I understand
on certain things, but yeah.
But I'd
that's
certainly
a pretty good observation on your part.
I'd certainly love to be a fly on the wall now, because I imagine within these camps, there's a lot of panic going on right now, because it's, you know, it's almost like, you know, a king being in a fort and all of a sudden the people have broken down the doors and they know they're coming. They know they're
Yeah,
coming. And there's
you know,
not, they know there's nothing they can stop. They can throw as much at them to stop them coming, but the people are coming for sure.
they are coming. And,
Yeah.
you know, just an interesting observation. I don't know what to read into it, but, you know, Lametti decided that now I'm done with politics and parachuted
Yes.
out of the Liberal Party. So I don't know what to make of that, but I find it interesting. We'll see
Yes.
in the coming days and months what that possibly could mean.
I think there's going to be a lot of rats deserting the sinking ship in hope that it may save the skin. But I think once you're to be held accountable for something that you did during your tenure of wherever you were and what you were doing, it's beyond saving now, and it's great news to see that. Now let's talk about the JCCF, the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms. They must currently be inundated with people wanting something done. How instrumental were they in this specific case that's just been won?
They were, you know, they provided a lot of the funding for the case, and I really appreciate their efforts. You know, it was a great organization, and you know they stuck with us and assisted our legal team to be able to have success in this case. So yeah, I have nothing but good words for the JCCF.
Yeah. No, that's great. And you know, we've seen them do a lot of great work. I've seen a lot of good speeches from them in the past. We've spoken to people from that organization, and you know, they are in the right place. They have people in mind and what they want to do. Now, for the likes of Trudeau and Freeland now, if they were tried and found guilty, held to accountability, what would the punishment be for that? Are we aware of where this can head and what they may be facing?
That's a good question. This will be a civil suit, so it doesn't have, you know, criminal implications. So who knows what will be uncovered during discovery of this particular challenge that we're launching. So, you know, we just follow the evidence where it takes us and see where to go.
Yeah.
But for now, this particular case coming up will be civil.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's going to be a lot of names named. I won't name names here, but in the coming days and weeks, Canadians will see who is going to be held accountable for what they did.
Excellent news. Really is excellent news. Now, we've seen a great battle won here, but as you said earlier, the war is far from over. You know, it's still being fought. There are millions of troops out there awaiting further instructions. What would you tell them?
Try to remain positive. Don't give up. You know, I know there's been a lot of discouragement over the past few years, but take this win for what it is and let it be the energy to keep us going to the next challenge.
Yeah.
It's so important. I want to reach the finish line with everybody. It's not about me, Vincent, or Jeremiah. It's about all of us getting to the finish line together. And, you know, you're going to see all kinds of things in the media about what's coming. Try to sift through the truth from the fiction. As you know, there's going to be a lot of things that come out that aren't going to be true. You know, we'll do our best to make sure that truthful information is always coming forward. And thankfully, the Accountability Project website will be that beacon of information regarding this case. And it'll be putting out all kinds of information and videos and all of the people that are joining our lawsuit that were affected. It'll show their story and it'll show how they can help and get involved and donate. And I know Canadians are tapped out. I mean, money's tight. We understand that. But, you know, if everybody could assist us as best you can when that site gets up and running, we would really appreciate it because we can't do this alone. And we can't let them win because of money. I mean, unfortunately, I wish things didn't cost money. Like we're not benefiting financially at all from the Accountability Project, that entity that's sponsoring us. Yeah. So it's strictly to help fund the legal challenge for all of us that are going to get involved. So, you know, I think Canadians, if you would like to help out, check out that site in the next coming days, because there'll be a lot of information that, you're going to be interested in and be able to see how you can help us out.
Yeah. Now, with the bank accounts that were frozen and the fund platforms, Give, Send, Go, and all the things that were set up, there was a lot of money donated, and obviously with the banks being froze, the accounts being blocked, and people's money that was donated to the donation platforms, is that still held frozen, and have people received the money back from this? Is this something that still needs to be dealt with?
Yeah, as far as I know, that money is still being held. And, we're not going to be, according to the Accountability Project, they won't be using Give, Send, Go or any of those platforms.
Yeah.
You're going to see different ways, and they'll put out that information soon of how people can donate, because they're gonna try to do things like they did before, with dirty tricks. So, yeah, I would highly suggest that people check out that site and see how you can donate. And we do, I got an update from the Accountability Project team. It's going to be completely transparent. There's legal in that organization. It has directors. It has a media team. It has, let's see, an accountant. And I know they're going to put out monthly statements and what the ticker is for people that donate and how much money comes in. Because, we don't want to look like a bunch of grifters that are just out to take people's money, for our lawsuit, and then say, hey, thanks a lot, see you later. We made, whatever. That's not what it's about.
Yeah.
This is to help fund the legal team. That's it. We get nothing from it. And, it's so important. This team has shown they've had success. So that's why we stuck with them for this lawsuit coming up. And I hope Canadians do help out.
Especially when they're going to be this transparent with things as well. It instills confidence in people that it's a trusted source, and it's great to move forward. Now, the vote to enact the Emergency Measures Act was 185 to 151 against. So that kind of shows it was almost split quite a way. But what surprised me is support was the highest in Atlantic Canada regions by the very politicians that people voted in. Should the people now review if these very politicians are acting in the best interests of the people that have voted for them? I mean, I'm going to add a link again in the show notes of this podcast of the list of politicians and show exactly who voted yay or nay. And I'm going to allow people to make their own minds up in regards to that. So don't forget to check that out and, confront these politicians. But do you think these politicians at this point were acting in the people's best interests, or were they acting on what probably the party whip has asked them to do?
I think you pretty much summed it up right there. The way I look at the political system, the way the party system in this country works, is that it's almost like a pyramid scheme from my observation. Unless you do what you're told, they punt you right out of the party. I don't believe all politicians are bad. I think a lot of people that are in parties are in it for the right reasons. But, it basically runs like a dictatorship with the party whip and who's ever, in charge of the party. And they're basically told, show up, vote the way we tell you, and don't speak unless you're told to speak. And that's a real shame. Our system is very flawed.
That's it. I see the political system like no other corporation. I do believe people get into politics at the grassroots level, certainly within their own towns and provinces, with the best intentions at heart. They want to do things for the people. They want to make change. But unfortunately, they affiliate themselves with one of the parties that they have to be with in order to make this happen, because they know that it's like a two-tier choice. You can either vote for this group or this group. And it's like being part of a corporation. We take the example that it might be McDonald's. It'd be somebody who wants to get into McDonald's and they think, well, I can make food healthier here. I can make it healthier for people. We can make it cheaper. And I can make a far better burger than the Big Mac. And they've got this great idea. and they take it to the, you know, the people that are the big corporation in charge, and they're just going to say, no, we're going to do it this way. If you don't want to do it that way, you're no longer part of this establishment. And I think that, unfortunately, when people enter politics with good intentions, they get into the system, they get paid for what they do. They can't afford to lose the livelihood, but unless they toe that party line at that point, they are no longer going to be part of that party, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's very true. You know, think about it over the past 4 years with the parties, you know, those in power, those in opposition. Anyone that spoke up got punted almost immediately. But now, you know, that things have sort of gone the other way a little bit. Politicians are now, they know it's safer to speak out. They didn't speak out to help Canadians at all during the past 4 years. They only did it when it was safe to do so for themselves, and they should be ashamed of that.
Yeah,
it's just terrible that people, you know, who voted you into office and you didn't have the courage to stand up and say the right things at the right time. You just didn't do it. You stood up when it was safe for you, and I can never forgive that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of politicians out there playing devil's advocate. I think a lot of them are aware that, you know, the gain in power of the people out there is going to determine their future. We've got the likes of Danielle Smith over in Alberta there, and people are praising her for speaking out and doing what she did. But then again, today, I saw a video of her speaking out, saying how she admired Chrystia Freeland and how she's a great woman for what she's done. You know, people need to really take a good, close look at these politicians moving forward and make sure who they are voting in are doing the work of the people. They're voted in, they have the best interests of the people moving forward. And not only that, people follow exactly what they do and make sure they are held accountable for bringing about what is needed to be done. And in a way, I've said it in the past, and I've said it on other shows and other interviews with people. We are equally responsible for the future of the country moving forward. Just because we have a government in place and just because we have politicians in place doesn't mean that we should just take a back seat and say, it's okay, we're paying them to do a job and it's good, I can sit back and let this happen. And my power is, you know, next time an election comes up, well, I'll vote for whoever I think's going to work best for us. That no longer can be the protocol moving forward. People need to be accountable for their own actions and making sure that they do take an interest in their lives and how their lives are run by the very people that they employ. And I've even suggested in the past that, you know, we're in an age of technology. Why don't people have an app on their phone where every day they can go on the app and they can see maybe what bills are being put through Parliament, and the people actually get to have a say in that, rather than allow that decision to be made by an easily corruptible politician where they have government whips that will go in and threaten their position of a job. Well, how about we threaten their position of a job? If they don't do what we want, all of a sudden we can remove them from that position and put somebody in who is in a far better position to make sure that they are doing what's in the best interest of the people.
I agree. You know, it seems at some point that we live in an illusion of democracy than an actual democracy. And that's our fault, all of us. We're all guilty of being complacent. You know, people don't show up to vote. You know, I think, what was it? The Liberal government got elected with 28% of the vote. We should all be ashamed that we don't get involved with our political system and take charge.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really know if, you know, in our political system now, if we can vote our way out of this kind of mess that we're in. I don't know. I wish I had the answer, but it doesn't seem that, you know, our vote seems to matter. It doesn't seem to change things. I mean, you look at what's happening now. You've got basically the NDP and the Liberals together. I mean, the NDP has effectively become, you know, an agent for the Liberal Party. They might as well change their name,
Yeah.
you know, to Liberal Party Part 2. I don't know. Yeah, it's disgraceful.
It is.
You know, and then, you know, what reality do these people live in? You've got Jagmeet Singh. Oh, well, you know, I'm speaking out against the Trudeau policy for this, that, and the other. But he has the power to make things change, and he doesn't do it.
No.
You know, Canadians are begging you to say something, to do something, and get out of the way so that we can get to a system where people's vote makes a difference, instead of holding us hostage. And I think that people feel that way, that we're being held hostage by two political parties that don't have our best interest at heart.
Yeah. And maybe, and we can only hope, as we move forward and hold people accountable, that maybe we can have a clean sweep of these houses, send a clear message to them, and maybe start making change for the best. And, you know, people need to learn from the mistakes that have been happened, because if we repeat them, then that's on the face of the people. We cannot repeat the mistakes that have been made. We can't afford to repeat those mistakes. So it's now the time where people need to take back their power and start making a difference in the country. Not only Canada, I'm talking about the UK, Europe, US, and Australia, and everywhere around the world that unfortunately has fell under the boot of tyranny. And this is where people really do now need to have the voice heard, start making a difference in the world, and basically make it a place where they want their children to grow up in, and something that is, you know, going to go down in history as a major change, a major shift, where we make a difference. It's the only way that we can move forward. Otherwise, we're moving backwards, unfortunately.
We are. And, you know, people really should get involved at their municipal level. That has a massive effect in your daily lives.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that you can actually have some effect. And that will move up through your provincial and your federal level governments. I know change is slow.
Yeah.
But, you know, this is our system. We have to fix it from within, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's going to take a long time, but we have to get involved.
That's right.
I mean, if we don't, what's going to be the result? They want to take everything, you know, everything into their control. They want to control every part of your daily life, everything. Is that what you want? I know I don't want that.
No, that's it. And at the end of the day, if people realize that they need to make a stand, not just on what's gone on here, but in other areas as well, because could you imagine the effect of money coming into very needy causes within Canada, whether it be infrastructure, healthcare, education, anything that is seriously required in a lot of provinces right the way across Canada. If people turn around and said something like, no, you're not sending billions of dollars to Ukraine. That stays here. That's our taxpayers' money. This is to help run our country, not support wars and foreign entanglements, which we always said we would never get into.
Yeah, it's amazing how much money they're willing to throw away to other countries and other, you know, causes that they feel is worthwhile. You've got enough causes in this country right now that we can't afford to send one penny outside of this country. There's people in desperate need right across this country, and our government is letting them down. Yeah. People are suffering in this country. They can't afford their bills. They can't afford food. I mean, just look how things are going. The reality check that these people need has to come sooner than later. Yeah. Because Canadians are suffering.
Yeah.
And we're going to be in a third world status if we keep going this way. Yeah. It's disgraceful what Canadians are having to suffer through and have suffered through up to this point.
And it's not just Canada. I've seen it in the UK. We went over to the UK last month and had a look. I'm seeing it on the streets of the UK. I'm seeing it on the streets of Canada. But Canadians that can't afford to live, can't afford to house themselves, are living in tents in the cities. In Halifax, I've seen where we used to go. We used to give speeches outside the town hall, right by the cenotaph. It's now full of tents with people that can't, you know, they don't have homes. They can't afford the rents. They can't afford to live anymore. This is not something we should see in a respectable and developed country like Canada, and certainly not in the UK and the US and everywhere else that we've mentioned. This is not the way to treat your citizens. This is not the way for people to live. And it's certainly not the future that I want to see come about. And it has to change. It's got to change.
We have no choice but to make it change.
Yeah.
You know, the direction we're going isn't very promising.
No.
So, you know, people have to stand up and get involved. You know, you can't just sit on the couch. You can't say, oh, I'm just going to live my life and this doesn't affect me. Well, it may not at the moment, but guess what? It will affect you, and it's coming. You just haven't seen it yet, a lot of people, but a large number of people in this country, it's already there for them, but it's coming for you. You just haven't seen it coming in your direction yet, but it is.
That's
so
right.
You better start taking action.
Because if the World Economic Forum want you to own nothing and be happy, and certainly while your deputy prime minister is on the board of trustees there, I think the writing's on the wall, and it's pretty bold and clear and large for people to see. I don't want to end on a negative note, so we're not going to. We're going to turn around. We're going to tell people now, it's happening, people, whether you like it or not. The momentum has started for people to stand up and take this back, take the power back, and make things happen. There's already one great win, which you've just been involved with, that's going to make a big difference, and more wins are coming. We're on a roll, people. It's time to get involved and certainly make this really something to talk about and tell your children in the future that you took part of this. I'm going to leave the last word to yourself there, Eddie, and I'm going to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you have done and what you're continuing to do. And I hope that so many people get involved with it moving forward. I'm going to give you the last word. Is there anything that you want to say to people before we leave today?
I would. I'd like to end on a positive note too. This was a massive win, and it's not to be underestimated. So I want everyone to know that we're 1 month into a spectacular year, 2024. We've got great things coming. Don't get discouraged. I think that we've started the momentum that is going to have the end result and achieve success. You know, I look at it like a vehicle that's stuck in the muck. We've got some movement. We need all to get behind and push together and heave, because we need to get things moving in the direction that we want it to go. And we're not stuck anymore. Things are starting to turn around, and give yourself a big pat in the back, because you stood up for 4 years and didn't get crushed. I know everybody took a lot of blows and took a lot of personal sacrifice, but you're going to find that those sacrifices are what's going to achieve success for us. So thank you, everybody, and hang in there, because we're in it together and we're going to get to the finish line. I promise you.
Absolutely. Lift your head up, people. Walk tall. The time is yours. It's time to make a difference. I wish you good luck. We're all going to be here to support you. Get this video out there. Get it shared. Send it to people. Let them know that all along they were right. Let them now be proud of what they've stood up for. And let them now make a mark in history moving forward. Thank you very much again, Eddie. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And I'll see you soon on the next episode. Take care. And as we always say here, believe nothing, question everything. And it's been great to see you again. Take care, everyone. Thank you very much. Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it.